this meeting. I would like to draw your attention to the evacuation procedures which can be found in the agenda under the information for members of the public and councillors section. Also, we have, I'm going to hand over to Lucy because tonight we can go more than 2.5 hours for conclude our business because we have a call-in. So, Lucy, do you want to explain?
Thanks, Chair. So, as outlined in the Constitution under the Overview and Scrutiny Procedure Rules at 10.3, it says that in exceptional circumstances, such as the consideration of a call-in, the committee can agree to extend the duration of the meeting beyond the 2.5-hour time period if needed. So, if we get to that 9:30 cut-off, we can extend. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. I would also like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council's website. I would like to wish everyone a Happy New Year and hope you all had an enjoyable Christmas. And also I would like to thank this Place Committee for allowing this extra meeting to go ahead tonight. We have quite a lot on the agenda in this municipal year, and as to conclude business, it could be that we even have another 1 or 2 meetings. That's how it's looking. Also, I'm going to welcome Sue Hodgson tonight. It's a lot about housing tonight, so it's very good to see you here. So thanks for coming. Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda, Lucy, is apologies for absence. I have not received any apologies. Are there any apologies?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Cecil.
Tom Kelly. Also, I believe Councillor Kelly has sent apologies. So that's it. Item 2 on the agenda, the minutes. Well, I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of November 2025, as outlined in the agenda, are approved as a correct record. Agreed? Thank you. Are there any comments of the accuracy of the meetings? No? Happy? Thank you. Declarations of interest on item 3. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make for tonight's meeting? No? Item 4, unplanned scrutiny items and members' right of reference. I have not been notified of any unplanned scrutiny items or members' right of reference. That gets us to the business tonight, which is item 4A, call in to Cabinet decision. LGA Social Housing Peer Review, HR8 Landlord Services. Can I ask Lucy Smith to present the report, please?
Thanks, Chair. So very briefly, I thought I'd just go through the process before we get started. So Councillor Spate, as he submitted the call-in, will be given 5 minutes to introduce the call-in and outline the reason for the submission, focusing on the Cabinet decisions and not an overall discussion of the work of the housing team. And then it will be up to Councillor Hooper and Claire to have 5 minutes to respond. Then it will be up to the Place ONS Committee to discuss the call-in and agree to either reject the call-in and the original Cabinet decision will proceed as planned, or refer the call-in back to Cabinet, outlining the reasons that they wish Cabinet to reconsider the decision and the alternative proposal that they're recommending. As I said, the discussion should be limited just to the Cabinet decision and not any of the wider issues that are raised. If the committee do have any other issues they wish to raise regarding housing or the peer review, then we can do that in a separate report or a briefing note at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Spate, your 5 minutes starts from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing this call in and for those members who supported me in this calling. It stems from the most recent Cabinet meeting when a report by peer group members of the Local Government Association put forward a review of our social housing structures and what we were doing. And it was a document that was very kindly written. It didn't look as bad as it actually was. And it went to Cabinet, but there were a great many things in it that were disturbing. There were 1 or 2 plus points as well. But I was absolutely shocked to realise at that Cabinet meeting that there had been no scrutiny on that document at all. It hadn't been to this committee, it hadn't been referred, some parts of it sort of crossover with adult health. So I just felt that it really was being sort of nodded through without any great debate. I do know that there is an action plan that wasn't discussed in great detail. I have faith in Councillor Hooper that he will do his damnedest to make sure that the thing works. But I'm not sure that everybody's aware just how bad that review was, and I would like members of this group to do it. So what I've done is I've just put together some notes, some bullet points, and the Chair and Clerk have kindly allowed me to share them with you, so you can maybe review it, look at them yourselves later on. As I say, it was a very damning critique of Thurrock Council's housing service with many significant failures, and I will list them, and I'll then hand it over to you. There's some subheadings: unsatisfactory reporting, accountability and communication, the transparency, influence and accountability elements of the...
Councillor Spate, we mustn't... we have an email from legal that says basically we can only talk about the call-in decision, whether or not, what way we're going to go about it. We can't go into the detail of the peer review. That's what it's saying at the moment. Well, if we decide that comes back to committee, then so that's what we're asking you to just basically make your speech why you feel that this call-in is.
I'm just going to list all the things that are in that review that are very poor, and then that will show you the way. I mean, I could read through the report. It's 29 pages. I've reduced it to 2 sheets of A4 bullet points that I think make shocking reading. And then it's down to you guys to decide whether you think it's shocking reading and what you're going to do about it. That's my understanding. So whatever you want me to do, I'm happy to do. The fact that you're here, I'm happy to shut up now and you can talk about it. You can talk to Councillor Hooper, talk to Claire. I'm sure they will be happy. And hopefully everybody's read the review. So if that's what you'd prefer me to do, then I'll shut up now and leave it to you.
What I prefer you to do is a summary, because the legal document that we've got, by all accounts from the legal team, says that nothing's to be discussed regarding the peer review report, but only why you feel that this call-in has come to place. There's going to be no questions asked, and then a decision is made by place committee of what to do. So you can do a summary, quick summary for me.
I will do a quick summary. I'll try and paraphrase my own things here. The report contains unsatisfactory standards. The peer group who reviewed it said there needs to be more information and data sharing within the council. There's not enough challenge. There's very little robust challenge. The value for money reviews and financial benchmarking are not being undertaken. External audits have not been completed. Annual governance statement makes no specific reference to the HRA. Backbench councillors have reported limited access to performance. Tenants have reported no involvement in financial oversight. They did not get to choose which politics to review, and they should be getting more information. They get very little information. A site visit around our houses found that crucial safety information for tenants is absent. There's limited clarity on how...
Councillor Spate, I think we got the gist of it.
Yeah, so all right, there's a list. There's a list. You can see it. It's a list of failure after failure after failure after failure after failure. It's not been brought to this committee for you to scrutinise all those failures. I think that you have a duty to scrutinise those failures that are highlighted in that report. You didn't get them. I think it was trying to be shoved through on the quiet so nobody would realise what was going on and just how bad it was. And I think it was a distasteful exercise that doesn't stand up to any of the hallmarks of honesty, transparency and openness that we're supposed to have. So I just think you should look at it and decide whether you think fair process was followed, and that's me done.
Yeah, Councillor Spate, all members have this sheet with the words on. What I like to say, I must admit, yesterday, first day back at council, didn't know nothing about this calling. This come just out the blue. And then, obviously, as time...
Sorry, Councillor Jones, that's not true. I don't want to fall out with you.
I'm not arguing with you, Councillor Spate.
That is not true. That is a lie.
I'm not arguing with you. I didn't know nothing about it until yesterday morning, right? And then today we get paperwork that's to say how the format should be. So I'm only putting over what the legal team have said. But anyhow, Councillor Hooper, do you want to reply?
I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of things not right in our housing department, and I think I'm really welcome to the report because it really helped us as a council highlight the areas we needed to improve upon. And no one is saying it's a 5-star wonderful report, though I would actually What I would say is that the report did highlight some good practice that the council were carrying out in the housing department. I don't think it's all doom and gloom, but I accept that there are things in the report where we need to do a lot of work. My approach to this has been not to hide the report, it's in the public domain. I highlighted during the committee at least 7 domain areas which were raised by the peer review group. So I don't think we're trying to hide anything. What I felt was really important is we get the action plan, and that the action plan came to this committee to scrutinise and to monitor. And I'm more than happy to come back. I'm hoping that the action plan will be ready for your end of January meeting, Chair, where members can comment on the action plan, participate in give any recommendations, and monitor that action plan. I think it'd be really helpful for this committee to help us monitor the action plan. And I feel that's a more positive approach. I think that in terms of the way our staff work, I actually think fundamentally we have some pretty good staff at this council. What I do feel that the staff need is some support and some training and to change some of our approaches, and that's very much part, I think, will be parts of that action plan. But I do note there's a lot of areas of work. No one's denying that. That's why I welcomed the peer review reports. To my knowledge, the council staff have welcomed that peer review report too, because it gives them some good ideas about a way forward. And that's what I really want to focus on, is not the past, it's the future. How do we improve things?
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Claire, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just to add, Councillor Spate, we're not disputing the findings of the peer review. We commissioned the peer review. We wanted a deep dive review of the service. This is part of the wider piece of work we've done to baseline all of our findings, all the complaints and all the good work that we've had for our housing service. And we now believe we're in a position where we can truly get to work on those improvements that we know that yourselves have raised in the past, that we know we need to make. But I don't think we can be lost in this. We have got a good cadre of staff that really believe in the housing service. And yes, as Councillor Hooper has alluded to, there is training and there is more work we need to do. But I think we've been very self-reflective. We've been very open and very honest. We're not trying to hide anything. And our proposals are set out in the associated report. Was that our proposal is to come back to overview and scrutiny. Well, we're coming back on January with the action plan to be scrutinised. And then to come back quarterly with updates, and as following, we'd like a commitment from overview and scrutiny this evening. We'd like to set up a subcommittee, a housing subcommittee, that would be chaired by Councillor Hooper, the portfolio holder, to hold the action plan and our actions and the officer's actions to account, and to feed that back into overview and scrutiny. So there's never been the intention to hide anything. The intention is to do a deep dive review of the service, to baseline where we are with honesty, openness and transparency, and move forward.
Thank you. Do members have any questions or thoughts? Councillor Sisterson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd welcome a working party on housing, and as part of the report was that members didn't always feel knowledgeable enough on the subject of housing, and I think that would be an excellent way forward. I can't see the need for it. That's a good thing to come out of it. I can't see the need for it going back to Cabinet, to be honest. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Cherry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can't say I've read this report, and I would now like to read this report in some kind of detail. But it's been called in. It's been called in for a reason. So I think there must be some warning bells ringing in relation to what's in that report. Chair, I mean, have you seen the report yourself?
I have read the report, but by all accounts tonight we're not allowed to actually speak about the report. But what we can do, we've got options here. We can either reject the call-in, or we can refer it back so it comes to this committee at the end of this month, and we can then go over it and discuss it and debate, and then it can go to Cabinet. Is that right? Yeah. Hand over to Lucy.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so the option, if you wish, would be for Cabinet to discuss, and then it's up to Cabinet to make the decision whether it would come back to scrutiny or not. As Claire's already mentioned, that the action plan will be coming back at the end of January. But that would be the way it would work, was that Place ONS could recommend to Cabinet that they would wish to see this report, and then it would be up to Cabinet to decide, if that makes sense.
Claire, have you got something to say? You're not sure about this or what?
My understanding is that either the call-in is rejected, and if it's rejected, or it goes back to Cabinet to note again. I mean, the understanding around the call-in, I think, is getting a little bit lost here. The report isn't being called in. The process around the governance is being called in. So we've got all intentions to come back on the 29th to go through the action plan and the report in the first place anyway. The call-in is about the process that is gone through already. We believe the process is correct, but the call-in isn't about the contents of the peer review, just for clarification.
Lucy?
Yeah, no, I agree. It would be up to the Place ONS committee to make the recommendation as to if they wish to refer it back to Cabinet. And then if they do wish to refer it back to Cabinet, the call-in, then, if that makes sense, it's up to Cabinet. So those are the options. They can refer the report back to Cabinet.
I'd say we're going to get to see this report anyway, aren't we? At the end of this month. So we're going to get to go through this report. So that's first of all, we've got to establish that.
Yeah, it's not.
Councillor Spate.
Yeah, I just have to bring one point to your attention. I get the bit you can't discuss the report and the elements of it which we fringe on. But what you've fundamentally got is, what is the purpose of scrutiny? It is a constitutional statement that reports of this nature, which involve employing new people, changing policy, doing all sorts of things, it is in the constitution of this council that report, before it goes to Cabinet, comes to a scrutiny committee. It's embedded in the constitution, and you're just ignoring that, because they just did. If you remember last year, we had the same thing on shared lives. And I was promised that will never happen again, and that things would always come to scrutiny. And this has not been brought to scrutiny, and it's in the Constitution. And if you're going to accept that, you may as well do away with scrutiny altogether.
Councillor Manuel.
Thank you, Chair. From my understanding of this conversation, even if we were to call it in, it wouldn't really achieve anything or do anything or change the contents of the report because it's already been done. It's a historic document. I actually agree with what Councillor Spate is saying in terms of the importance of scrutiny, and some of the findings in there. Obviously, there's work to be done, but I think the most effective way of getting that done wouldn't be to call it in. I don't think that would make much difference, but rather we wait for the end of the month, go through it in its entirety. And plus, some of the stuff that's mentioned in there is related to the agenda items that we're going to go on to anyway, which is relevant. So that's what I take from it. I think there's a bit of confusion really about a lot of the key aspects of this.
So we've got to make a decision with this committee what way we're going to go. Councillor Manuel, you put that over very well. Do you want to propose that we do that? And then we'll have a vote on that, because I think, yeah. Can you propose it?
I'm happy to do that.
Any seconder?
I agree.
Councillor Sisterson. All in favour? Or, yeah?
Can I just confirm what we're voting on?
Yeah. Go on.
So just to confirm, the recommendation that everyone's voting on is for the action plan to come back at the end of January. So ultimately, in terms of the recommendations that are set out in the report, we're rejecting the call-in, so the Cabinet decision will proceed, and we're proposing an alternative recommendation, number 3, that is to bring the action plan back to committee at the end of January. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to clarify. Sorry.
Yeah. So, show of hands, please. I think that's, you got that, Kenna? Yeah. Anyone against? One. That's it, isn't it? The numbers. Anyone abstaining? Who? No, she's not. No. My vice chair is misleading me, so things are bad enough as it is, but complicated matters. Okay with that. So that's the decision of this committee on the call-in. Thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda, where are we, is a verbal update on Brisbane House. As we know, Brisbane House flooding happened on the 12th of November at 7 p.m. and affected 64 properties. All tenants were safely housed, 22 households in temporary accommodation, 18 households staying with family and friends, 23 households in hotels. That leaves one. I wonder what happened to my numbers, that comes out at 63. So we have to find out what happened to that. So at the Place Committee held on the 27th of November, members were given a briefing. I'd like to let everyone know because of the importance of what happened. It's drastic, just coming up before Christmas, terrible for these people. But a briefing was given at this committee, which was requested by the chair and agreed with Claire Demmel. At this meeting, Place Committee members are requested to be kept updated on progress as to repairs on the flats and a rough time period as to when residents may be able to return safely to their homes. Place members were given an email update on the 12th of the 12th. This update referred to how council were dealing with the residents regarding rent and service charges, and also outlined the financial assistance that would be available until they were able to return. The report stated that residents and assigned tenancy management officers had been working well together. The update stated how the relationship to help make sure that good progress is being made on both in the works of the block and in securing suitable temporary accommodation for all residents. The council has shared an update with residents about the rent and service charges. No tenant will pay the service charge until they are able to move back in, as they were not benefiting from the services they would normally pay for. Any tenant that is currently staying with family or friends will not be charged rent, as the council is not covering the cost of the accommodation. This arrangement will be backdated to 13th of November. Place members received another update from council on the 19th of the 12th, 25, reporting how repair works and safety checks were progressing on the flats. The report stated that some of the flats on the lower level were less affected by the flood, some of which had no flood damage at all. The report stated that 24 flats on the lower floors, after repairs and safety checks, were ready for residents to move back in. 8 residents indicated that they wanted to move straight back into their homes, and the remaining 16 are staying at their current accommodation until the new year. Officers have agreed to supply another update on Brisbane House at tonight's Place meeting, and I, as chair, invited chairs from other committees and to reward councillors as to put their questions to officers, bearing in mind that some of the negative comments that have been highlighted, how council handled this situation. Can I hand over to Claire Demmel, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Some of this may be a bit repetitive, but the progress to date. So electricity and water have now been restored throughout the building. 1 lift is fully repaired and operational. Safety checks and repairs have now been completed on 24 flats across the first 6 floors. Residents in these flats were given the option to return before Christmas. We didn't make it compulsory. We give people the option of whether they wanted to move back into Christmas or wait until after the Christmas break. Of these, 9 households moved back in and were supported to move back in, 8 of them on the 22nd and 23rd, whilst others chose to remain in their temporary accommodation to the new year, which we were happy to support. Support has been provided to returning residents, including heating engineers, multi-trade operatives, caretakers to clear spoiled food, and operational staff to assist with moving issues. Electricity meter top-ups were provided, and portable heaters have also been supplied to help warm homes quickly before people moved in. So our current position as of today, so 9 households have returned home, 3 households remained in hotels over Christmas by choice. 34 households are in temporary accommodation, either in private rented nightly lets or council-owned furnished voids. 17 households are staying with family and friends, and 1 household is being detained at His Majesty's pleasure. Compliance checks for electricity, water safety and drying continue for the remaining flats. That's the one that was missing. For the remaining flats, and restoration works have been identified for most others. Nearly all residents have provided access for assessments and safety checks. Before Christmas, and there was some misunderstanding in the local press about this, so before Christmas, a minor leak occurred when water was turned back on in one flat when a bath tap had been left open when someone had evacuated their property and the plug put in. This affected other flats and communal areas, but damage was minimal and repairs are being completed. We'll continue to keep residents informed and supported, and I think our housing staff have been exceptional in these circumstances, working over and above what would be expected of them, and working to get everyone home as quickly as possible. Officers will remain on hand during move-ins to assist with heavy items and address any issues. So our next steps are the priorities to enable more households to return home as soon as their flats pass compliance tests. This will initially focus on floors 1 to 6. On-site support teams remain available, including heating engineers, multi-trade operatives, caretakers, to ensure there's a smooth transition for residents moving back into their properties. We're moving 9 more residents from floors 1 to 6 back in this week, likely over Thursday and Friday. Floors 7 to 12 will start to move back in from the week beginning the 19th of January, subject to electrical checks being signed off and drying out works being completed where required. Properties on floors 12 to 15, as you will expect, are the worst affected, but there is a variation in severity and therefore the recovery works required. So we'll work on these households on an individual basis to determine a return plan. Timescales will be determined on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Claire. And it's ongoing. No one writes a book about what you should do, how you should do, when you should do about a situation like this. And you know, to my mind, everyone was assigned a personal counsel person a go-to person, should we say, and it's sort of moving on like that. As any members have questions for Claire, the officers on this subject? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Claire, can you be more specific with the drying out process and what's been implemented to dry those properties out? Because it's my understanding that there was no dehumidification used in any of the properties.
Obviously, I'm not a technical expert on this, Councillor Allen, but I'll hand you over to our technical expert. I think he has answered the question previously, but he will answer it now again for you.
Thank you, Chair. Drying out process is going to be led by the insurance contractors. So they're the appointed specialists in restoration works. Because there was no power in the block, we haven't yet started that because we had to replace all the lateral mains, all the risers and all the electrical services, which are near completion, will be completed next week or 2. And then from then on, the insurance contractors will start the drying out process. But they've completed their assessments and they know what they need to do, and we're mobilising them from next week to do those works.
All right, thank you for that explanation. But I can't understand why the insurance wouldn't have implemented a diesel generator outside to power the block to take the process of dehumidification. In my 53 years on this earth, I've been involved in quite a lot of insurance work over the years. And anything with flooding disasters, dehumidification's been implemented straight away. It's the best way to suck the moisture out of the air. It actually pulls the water from out of the walls or wherever it's hiding. It will literally pull it and suck it out. And this is why I can't understand why this process wasn't implemented up until now. The excuse is that there's no electricity been available, but that's not an excuse in my eyes. There should have been a diesel generator implemented outside and cables put through, put through the flats and dehumidification process allowed to take place. But I can't understand for the life of me why this hasn't been implemented.
Carry on.
Chair, beg to differ, as councillor here. The contractors are specialists in doing this right now. All contractors will have their own methods as to how they tackle the approach. Having a diesel generator on the ground floor and wiring that up to 15 stories is not a straightforward matter. However, that being said, we had to undertake all sorts of strip-out works as well, will be required. And there are asbestos floor tiles in those properties. So we have to do the due diligence before we start the drying out process, because the drying out process will be pointless unless you do the necessary remediation with the strip out, with carpets, with floorboards, to get to the substrate of the base. So the contractor is a specialist in this, and we're taking their lead. We're working closely with our technical team as well in how they approach this. And it's been done with the full purview of the loss adjusters as well. Thank you.
And just lastly, if I may, Chair, will the tenants be compensated for the rip-outs of such sundries, carpets and etc., and other items that have been destroyed in the disaster?
Carry on.
Chair, I won't comment on that specific point, but what I also should have added, we did have to get the consent of the residents to be able to access their properties to carry out the necessary works and such like. So this has been done with the full consent of all the residents in the block. So I take Councillor's point in terms of the methodology and approach, but there are many different ways to approach the problem. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Allen.
I still feel there's an element of dodging here, Chair, with regards to liability and the loss and damage of personal objects. Some of those objects can't be replaced, I'm afraid. I believe that there's been some, special artifacts in, like personal belongings that have been lost, photographs, everything else, but that they mean something to those families.
Councillor Allen, it's a question this committee did put towards the officers at the beginning. We know that everyone should be insured. Everyone should have their own insurance, house insurance, flat insurance, or whatever. Not everyone's insured to the, we have different levels of insurance, and that's where we did ask the question, is there a recall for that? But if they're not insured, some of this goes to their own insurance. For if you have a flood at home, that's your own insurance that you refer to, isn't it? You don't go to the council, to the water board or anything like that. It's your own insurance. And I understand where you're coming from, but I feel that how far you could turn around and say, I've got this, I've got that. Is it written down there? Is it insured? Is it written down there in the paperwork for the insurance has to see?
So literally you're saying then, Chair, that if they're not insured, they won't receive any type of compensation for their loss or damage?
We can ask the question again. Claire, what is the take on this one?
Yeah, we'll look at claims on a case-by-case basis, but the responsibility is on residents to find their own insurance.
Thank you both.
As I say, that was asked early time, Councillor Allen. Councillor Cherry.
Thank you, Chair. It's a terrible thing that happened to the people of Brisbane House, and I understand we've checked the other buildings, the other tower blocks, to make sure that they're okay. Is there any alarm systems been put in to notify us of this sort of thing happening again early? If there is a water leak, is an alarm system in the other tower blocks so it doesn't go as badly as it did at Brisbane House?
Chair, yes,
Carry on.
we've assessed all the pipe work in the 3 blocks at Fremantle, Brisbane, and we are looking at, we've replaced most of the tank work, pipes at the roof level. We are looking at possibility of putting in sensors, pressure valve and sensors that will shut off automatically if there are any sort of leaks or any sort of faults that are detected. So we're in the process of assessing that at the moment.
Chair, and will that be all our tower blocks across Thurrock? You just mentioned 2 others then, I think, but will that be all of our tower blocks?
Where there's roofed top tanks, we would look to have that assessed and installed, yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cherry. How often will these systems be checked now? I mean, after this is so serious now, you know, how regular will these water systems and tanks, especially in a high-rise, be checked?
Chair, I'll ask my technical manager to come in.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to summarize the questions. First question, obviously, I'm going to go back to Brisbane House. There are total 64 flats. Out of them, 18 flats are the only one which are affected by the flooding. All the remaining flats are not affected by the flooding. Of those 18 flats, there are few flats which require carpets to be removed, the asbestos tiles to be removed, which are the notifiable work under HSC, and then the dehumidifier and drying process will start for those particular flats. And there are some flats as well which need complete strip outs as well, which will require complete renewal, new bathroom, kitchens, and everything. Yeah. So coming to the overall, what we have done about the pipe work. So what we have done particularly for the Brisbane houses, we have renewed all the pipe work where previously it was plastic plastic pipes and joints. Now we have put the copper with welded joints in, so that leaks doesn't happen ever again in that area. But in addition, we are looking for the drainage system for that tank room. So if we have the drain, if the water do leak, it goes via the drain systems into the drains instead of flooding the building. That's another proposal we are doing. Another thing which we are working on is in terms of carrying out the full condition surveys of all our tank rooms and pipe works and all associated materials in all the buildings which has the boosted water pump systems, which is not only high rises, we do have other buildings as well which has co-pressurized system. So we are starting the condition surveys of all those ones. Those surveys will tell us what works are required and how we can ensure this sort of things doesn't happen again in the future. Thank you.
And Chair, your question in terms of our inspection regimes, all our tank rooms and tanks are inspected twice yearly.
Councillor Hooper.
What I just wanted to say was I was there when the 8 families moved back into their flats, so I had a conversation with 5 of them. And those tenants have been absolutely amazing. It is a disaster in their lives, and they've been absolutely fantastic. Can I just say? I think that generally is the case. But the 5 families I spoke to all said how well they felt supported by this council. Can I just make that very, very clear? Someone's got their mic on. And I just really wanted to say thank you to the staff who, as said already, went over and beyond to try and help people who are having a very, very difficult time. There will be lessons to be learnt. There always is from any kind of major incident. And once I think everyone is back, we will sit down and we will look at what we could do better if we're in, unfortunately, a similar situation. But I just wanted to put on record, thank you to the tenants because they've been wonderful, and thank you to our amazing staff for the work they've been doing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hooper. I'd like to second that as well, because we've been updated at this committee on every stage that's gone through. Councillor Allen, I appreciate you coming tonight as Ward Councillor, and you put over some good points. And that was the idea of this meeting, that someone from the residents come and put over. Before I come back to you, Councillor Allen, I've just got Councillor Lydiard who had his hand up for a while.
Thanks, Chair. As you may know, I'm in Tilbury doing surgeries twice a week. And initially, when the flood started, lots of tenants were coming down. They were all dealt with very, very quickly. I was really surprised at the effort and the number of people on the officer side that were put in to sort the problems out. And I have to say, for the last 5 weeks, not had one complaint, not one problem whatsoever. So well done to the officers.
Thank you, Councillor Lydiard. I believe Councillor Rigby first. So would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Claire. So I think everyone seems quite happy, certainly I've spoken to, with the way the Council have helped everyone. My main question that Councillor Hooper has alluded to is the evacuation procedure and whether you'll be looking at how that happened in this instance, you know, for going forward, because a fire is, you know, is a lot more tricky to evacuate and time is of the essence. So really just to see if you're going to look through how this evacuation went and how you can put in place, you know, any improvements with the evacuation.
Thank you, Chair. So as part of any incident of this nature, we go into different stages of the recovery stage. So we're probably in the second quarter of the recovery phase of this, but we will, in the next few weeks, start reviewing the incident as it occurred and if there are any lessons to be learned and how we can embed those in policies and processes moving forward. We want to improve. It's not something that we're going to say we did a fantastic job, everything was wonderful. In any type of evacuation like this, there are always going to be small, bigger lessons to learn. It's a constant learning curve. So of course we will, as part of our review process, and we're more than happy to bring that review back to this committee for you to look at, for you to scrutinise at a later date.
Thank you.
Councillor Menway.
Councillor Rigby's basically asked my question anyway, because and it also links.
Stole your thunder, actually.
But I think it links to the item that we're about to look at, in that a strategy is only as effective as its implementation. So it would be really important to obviously review what happened, because I'm the other ward councillor for that, for Tilbury. And yeah, as much as there's a lot of thanks to be said for everyone that helped in a really, really difficult situation, there's of course things we could improve. So it's great to hear that we'll do a review and see what went well and what could be improved for the future. Yeah.
Well said. Councillor Allen, do you want to?
Thank you, Chair. Just lastly, I mean, I can't emphasise this enough, is in terms of due diligence for the maintenance. Now, really, we should have had like some kind of escape for that. I believe it's something like 3,500 litres. It should have already been there. It's okay, you know, saying now that once the ulcer's bolted and all the damage is done, and, you know, some of the residents, tenants there have suffered terribly, you know, with their mental health. It's really, you know, reduce some of those tenants to, you know, they've been crying, they've been, you know, I've even had conversation with one tenant that it's crazy what he said. He said he'd take the pill. He'd just take the pill, and he's just had enough. Now, the history of these high-rise flats, they're already damp and mould boxes. Now, all that this disaster, this flooding disaster and this water has done has exacerbated how bad they actually are now. They are riddled with damp and mould. Now, I've been
Can you get to your question, please,
I've been
Councillor?
a serving councillor
Yeah,
now for a long time. And even when I was councillor for Tilbury St Chad's, I served those tenants in there. So we're going back a long time, Chair. Now, They've implemented overboarding to some of the walls that are affected.
Councillor
And
Allen.
they've come straight through again. So what are we going to do to make these flats, these properties of ours, livable we're in 2026 now. Now, we shouldn't be charging, and I understand with all the charges.
Councillor Allen, you've got to ask a question, not a statement, please.
The residents are charged more than a 3-bedroom house, say, in Stafford Place for living now. What are we going to do to improve these flats and make them acceptable for today's living? Because they're not. They're not. I can take you through a lot of them and show you.
Okay, I'm going to, Councillor Allen, I'm going to call that. Councillor Allen, please. I've given you the opportunity to ask the question, not make a statement. I know how you feel. Listen, I was a councillor before you at the time, and we've had damp and mould in Thurrock in homes for a long, long time. In fact, this is on the committee tonight, one of the main things on the agenda, damp and mould, and our council are intending to tackle these issues. So this has been ongoing for a long time. And yeah, you're right, it isn't right. But I'm not going to ask you, no more questions now, that's it.
Chair,
You're not going to ask a question and not a statement,
Chair, all
please.
we've had is quick fixes, a wash and a paint over. It's not acceptable, Chair. We need to do something.
We agree, and when we come to that on the agenda tonight, maybe that question will be asked, but thanks very much. So with that, does anyone want to put a conclusion? I'd like to send my thanks to all the team that worked down there on this horrendous occasion that night. It must have been absolutely terrible. I think you've done a great job, and so pass on our thanks. Thank you very much. There was one question I was going to ask, Claire, but obviously I was thrown off track. I just wanted to know if we're going to have feedback, shall we say, from residents, feedback, kind of like feedback forms that could be implemented. So as time goes on, you know, you can see what their views are of how council have handled this situation. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. What I probably omitted from my response to Councillor Rigby and Councillor Mann was, as part of our debrief and as part of our lessons learned, we will do a survey that goes out to residents, and it'll ask some of those emotive questions, but it'll be so hopefully we can learn from anything we may have got right, may have got wrong. But residents are a key part of our story, a key part of our of what we need to do, now we need to improve. And you're going to see that as part of our peer review, as part of the improvement programme and the work that we're doing with residents like Sue, to make sure that resident voice is key to all of the work that we do in our housing services that we appreciate may have been missing in the past. So this is one of the key things that we're going to use for our lessons learned.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation is for the committee to note the update received. Okay, and could you keep the updates coming, Claire, and any emails as well, so we're fully up and know where we are with this. Thank you very much. Well, right, with that, I'd like to move on to item 6 tonight, which is a housing, fire, safety and building safety policy. Can I ask Councillor Huber to present a report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Following the Granville Tower disaster, national legislation introduced stricter duties for landlords, stronger regulation and clear resident protections. The council managing high-rise buildings are now have defined responsibilities and principal accountable persons with greater regulatory oversight from the Building Safety Regulator. The Building Safety Act comes into force in October 23, and together with the Social Housing Regulation Act of 2024, puts residents firmly at the centre of how we manage our social housing, particularly in our high-rise buildings. For abbreviations, there's a number of abbreviations in the report. I'm going to refer it to HRBS. The Building Safety Act creates a new regulator, the Building Safety Regulator, BSR, who have commenced audit compliance in social housing. The building safety policy applies particularly to high-rise residential buildings, and what I mean by that is anything above 18 metres, so 18 metres plus, or 7 stories plus. The council have registered its 12 high-rise blocks with the BSR. The council have reviewed and updated its building safety policy and fire safety policy to meet statutory duties and to demonstrate a robust governance agreement in the management of buildings and fire safety. The building safety policy also contains resident engagement strategy to ensure residents are aware, informed, and can input in decision making related to building and fire safety. I'll leave it there, Chair, and if there are any kind of technical questions, I'll probably refer them to my colleagues behind me.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Any questions from members? Councillor Manwa.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper, for presenting the report. My question is, slightly technical, I guess. On page 31, point 13.1, there's a statement about the stay put strategy, which is adopted by councils, and it talks about how the validity of this strategy is evaluated during the annual FRA. I'd be interested to know against what criteria is that strategy deemed acceptable? Because especially with the national context of the Grenfell tragedy and how some residents were told in that situation to stay put, which obviously proved fatal for some people, depending on the circumstance, surely staying put isn't always applicable. So I'd be interested to know in what circumstances would that be seen as the right thing to do, and in what circumstances wouldn't it be?
Thank you, Councillor Manoir, and I will refer the technical question to the gentleman behind me.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Manoir. We work very closely with their 6.5 Rescue Service on any live event. They were the authority that made the decision to evacuate at Brisbane because they assess the situation when they feel residents can no longer be protected within their home. So the starting point, the default position is to stay put, because you can imagine everybody evacuating at the same time will impede the fire rescue service actions at times. And if the fire service feel, in consultation with all the relevant statutory bodies, ourselves and the police will also be in attendance, a joint decision will be made in terms of evacuation. And that's the current process. And it's reviewed on a sort of case-by-case basis on the event.
Thank you. That makes sense. Thanks.
On that subject, this was always a thing I was in when I was chair before of Cleaner and Greener, and I had the fire service that used to come on a regular basis as to talk about, have we got platform ladders? Do we know if our local fire service has its own platform ladders? Because we've got these high-rise buildings plus industry in Thurrock, and I know for a fact in Tilbury Docks where there's been a fire and it's been at height, obviously the platform ladder has been needed, but now I'm thinking with the Grenfell thing, and we've got many flats in that area. Do we know if the fire service has access to its own one, or does it have to borrow one from somewhere else?
I wouldn't like to answer for the fire service here and now, because I believe how they resource their stations is something that's always under review depending on the region that the necessary operational base is based at. I can certainly find out from the Essex Fire Rescue Service and provide the answer back to you, Chair.
Well, please do, and emphasise that we think one's needed in Thurrock for sure, especially with coma sites and such like. Any other questions from members? Councillor Panjali.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. First of all, I would like to wish you all Happy New Year. This is the first meeting. So, thank you for the report. And I have one question about that one. Like Thurrock having total 15 number of high-rise buildings. As per the regulatory framework, council will be required like a BAC certificate, building assessment certificate. Just I want to know whether all of them, 15 of them, having BSc certificate or not.
Carry on.
Right. Thank you, Councillor, for this question. So in terms of building assessment certificates, what the regulation and current regime is under building safety regulator call up on all the buildings. That's where they will request all the documentation like building safety case reports, your building safety resident engagement strategy, your MOR process and all those ones. So BSR basically doing it in the phases. So currently they are probably, since the last news, they was doing any buildings which are 40 stories and plus. As our buildings are mainly, the highest one we have is only up to 16 story. So we are expecting BSR to come to visit our buildings probably in this, looking at about mid or end of this financial year. Yeah. So what we have done is we have total 15 buildings which are classed as a high-rise building, which are 18 meter plus. We have registered all those buildings. We have provided all the information to BSRs. Now we are waiting for their call to come in and request for all our documentation, which we are preparing and which we have pretty much prepared as well, which include building safety case report for each building, fire strategy for each building, MOR process we have, building safety resident engagement strategies. Once we will submit, once they satisfy with all the things which we have in place, then they will issue a building assessment certificates. And those building assessment certificates are normally valid for 5 years, and they are legally required to be displayed in the buildings as well.
Chair, if I may add to that, we
Please
have
do.
also deregistered 3 tower blocks in the Blackshots area, so they may not be sort of subject to the same regulation under the Building Safety Act. Okay.
So, thank you for the details. So far we haven't get any buildings about the BSc certificate. As per your, like you said, we prepared and we are waiting for the BSR to need to come and they have to investigate and they have to confirm. So all these years were missing, or what happened all these years?
No, it's not missing. That's the BSR has their own regime which they are following. It's not for us to go and apply for building assessment certificate. It is for them to call us when our building time will come.
Councillor Panjala, just to clarify, once the Building Safety Regulator calls upon us, we will submit all our documentation, all our risk assessments, all our investigations, all the necessary information that they will require, and then it's up to the Building Safety Regulator then to assess that information, and if they're satisfied, they will issue the Building Safety Certificate.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay. I have one more thing. I have a page number 20. About that one, we have got one table about the author, owner, approved by all this. So about this one, like a cabinet holder, Councillor Mark Harrell, approved about this sheet here, they mentioned. So is the date is missing. So just I want to know when it was approved.
I'll have to, Chair, I'll have to further check that and come back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
How often are the building safety reports updated, and who's involved with constructing these reports?
Chair, the building safety case reports, which we have currently already developed, they're quite hefty documents. They can be up to several hundred pages, contain every information about the structure of the building, time it was built, floor plans, etc. All structural surveys, and such like. Once we do that, we are required to provide a summary for our residents and make a document available in an accessible format, and we're working on that now at the moment to make them available on our website. But also to provide sort of summary versions in the communal places and notice boards with email addresses. People wish to contact us, then we can send those documents across to residents. But they are reviewed annually, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right. They are
Yeah.
reviewed. Yeah, so they are reviewed regularly. They are the
Yeah.
live documents,
Yeah,
obviously.
they're-
They are
so
the
live,
documents which get
they're live documents. Anytime there's any work happening within a tower block, we have to update the building safety case report as to what work has happened, what elements have we changed. So if there's pipe work, if there's, like we've recently done assessments of the water tanks, that will all go into the building safety case reports.
Okay, thank you. Do you think council are ready for the suspected BSR safety assessment? Do you think we're ready for this?
I'd like to think we're ready, but we definitely always be on our, keep checking and reviewing all our systems, processes and documents to ensure that they're updated and they're visible towards sea.
And one other question, it's got the MOR reporting system. Our residents, are they fully involved and know how this operates? Because it's a very important document as to fill in.
Thank you, Chair. It is very important. I think that's the biggest area of improvement we need to focus on, is how we engage our residents more in our building safety processes and all our assessments, our tests, our certifications. We have to do much more work to be more engaging. Health and safety only becomes live, as you can appreciate, when it absolutely affects people. But to keep it a live, routine element on a day-to-day basis, we have to find innovative ways to engage with our residents. We are working with the Housing Residents panel and members of the panel. There's a health and safety working group set up, which we engage with on a monthly basis to discuss all elements of our work regarding health and safety. I would welcome any sort of suggestions from any members of the committee here in terms of how we feel we could serve the residents better and engage more robustly on any matters relating to health and safety.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor Hooper, did you want to come in? You indicated. I'm getting to know your hand don't go full up, it goes halfway. So there you go. Thank you.
I just really want to make a point, and I think it kind of comes up in the peer review as well, in terms of our housing, about how important it is we really involve our residents in getting this right. I think it is something we've got to get better at, and something as portfolio holder I will be working with officers and tenants to get that better communication, that better feedback and that better partnership working.
Thank you. Councillor Sisterson, who had her hand up before by all accounts, but...
That's fine. No, nothing urgent. I just want to come back on the, obviously involving tenants and getting them familiar with the process, because they might notice something every day and just not do anything about it, or not think that it's their job, if you like, to do anything about it. So I know that there's a regular newsletter, isn't there, that goes out to tenants. So maybe it could be made very clear on that newsletter, the process. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Good question. One other...
Thank you, Chair. I feel I didn't fully answer your question regarding the MOR process, the mandatory occurring reporting.
I knew there was something missing.
Yeah. It is important. Any time there's an incident or change in any of our tower blocks, we have to complete this process and submit that report to the building safety regulator. In fact, we did the very same process for the Brisbane incident. We completed a detailed report on the incident, parties that were involved, the actions that were taking, the remediations, all our follow-up strategies, and that was submitted to the building safety regulator. We had a subsequent interview, a meeting with the building safety regulator, who were content with our actions and everything we had undertaken as a council, and decided to take no further action and close the file on us, to say they were content with our response. So that was an example of where the MOR process, a live event, a live dynamic situation occurred. We had to respond, work with our residents, and liaise with the relevant authorities in terms of how we're addressing the problem. Thank you.
The technical service team, it seems to be this is a very busy department. I'd like to know, have we got enough numbers in this team for what when reading the report, they crop up quite regular, and I think, oh, this is a busy little team. How many numbers have we got? And we've got enough to cope. That's the main concern, really. Thank you.
I think I should really defer to my exec director on this one.
We will be reviewing all structures as part of the peer review process.
Any other questions from members? No? Oh, Councillor Panja.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding this fire safety assets and servicing and inspection program, page number 64, we got like a one table, weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis, our inspection is happening. Suppose, I hope everything is in work in progress. If anything missing or not happening, and who is going to be responsible for those? Who is monitoring those?
Chair, part of the review that's been highlighted, we'll be calling in an independent assessor to assess the work we do in terms of ensuring full compliance of all our buildings, and that the inspection regimes that we have in place, which are all carried out by independent third parties. So all of the inspection testing regimes are carried out by specialists and experts that we procure from the open market, and they provide certification, they provide reports. Obviously, they have their professional indemnity on the line to making sure their reports are quality assured and validated. We review, the technical team, we review those reports and follow up on any remediations. What we want to do now is call in a third party to inspect us to ensure we're checking their work appropriately and diligently. So that'll be the next steps in the process.
So whatever is checks happening, are we maintaining the records? Where can we find those records if we want to go through that one, if we want to see?
Right. Am I correct answer? Right. So is it mean you, is it like weekly fire alarm test you mean, or monthly emergency light test, these level of tests, or is it the fire risk assessments or fire alarm system servicing or emergency lightning servicing? So what level of checks? If I will answer the basic ones, which are non-technical, like weekly fire alarm test, which is done for the building, or emergency monthly test, or flushing ones, they're all being carried out by the relevant teams, like caretaking teams carry out for the high-rise buildings and the blocks which has got emergency lighting in the low rises. Our shelter teams carry out the weekly, monthly checks for the shelter schemes. So it depends where the building is and which team is responsible for carrying out those non-technical checks. And we, as a technical services team, we always carry out the building safety audits to all our high-rise buildings and sheltered complexes on quarterly basis. And we as a team, which we have mechanical and electrical guys, which ensure that they check the records of those weekly checks or monthly checks, and they ensure if they are not being carried out by the site personnel straight away, we take the follow-on, we create an action for the relevant teams to ensure they don't miss those ones again.
Yeah, thank you. If it is everything is going well and you are confident about the process, then it should be fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? So with that, I'd like to go to recommendations. For the reasons set out in this report, the committee is recommended to 2.1, review and note the updated housing fire safety policy, Appendix 1, to take effect immediately for a period of 3 years until review in March 2028. 2.2, review and note the new housing building safety policy, Appendix 2, also to take effect immediately, ensuring compliance with the Building Safety Act 2022 and other relevant legislation. 2.3, note that the Thurrock Council has registered all 15 high-rise residential buildings with the Building Safety Regulator, and Housing Technical Services team is continuously working on safety case reports, resident engagement strategies, and the mandatory occurrence reporting system in line with the statutory requirements. Are we all agreed? Thank you very much. So with that, we're moving on, which is all to do with housing tonight. Item 7, which is approach to tackling damp and mould in social housing. Can I ask Councillor Hooper again, please, to present the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will do my best without coughing. Right, and I'm sorry if I pronounce this incorrectly. OED's law was introduced in October 25, placing a statutory obligation on social housing providers to take prompt, effective action to address damp and mould issues. It sets out clear timescales for investigations, remediations, alongside requirements for proactive measures and resident engagement. In essence, the report highlights the following: how processes have been adapted to meet the stricter timelines as set out in OED's law for reporting a damp and mould report, important guidance on customer care and resident reporting issues, ensuring clear communication and support throughout the process. A proactive measure on how in place for early identification and verifying issues like inspections, checking in with customers, customer surveys are all included in the damp and mould alerts. Strengthening additional processes and identifying and addressing risk priorities. Establishing a team to ensure effective and streamlined processes and actions. The report also highlights areas which is ongoing work. Review and update the damp and mould policy to reflect best practice and legal changes. Develop online resources for residents, including videos, guidelines, and tuition, and continue regular training of all our staff who interact with our residents to ensure consistency in information, advice, and support. I now open.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper, for your report. Yeah, this is, as was stated earlier, damp and mould in a lot of our properties has been an ongoing issue for many years. I'm concerned about health issues regards children in some of these properties. So, you know, we've got to get this right. If we're going to be doing it now, we've got to get this right and find an approach as to go forward and you know what I'm saying, not just paint over it, it's got to be treated correctly. I mean, I remember when I was a councillor before that council spent a lot of money refurbing these homes. There was nice homes, they refurbed them, and they basically put all these new kitchen cabinets and bathroom cabinets up on the wall over mould. So eventually, yeah, I mean, I can tell you, Daybreak Windows, Clive Broad, you know that, Councillor Huber, he came along with me as to see this works, being a builder and into windows and everything. Could not believe it. So within a very short space of time, we had to call council in again. I took officers round it as to show them. And what got me, I thought, well, go back to the contractors that done this work, because this work hasn't been done correctly. You know, and then gone are the days when we used to have that man come out, Councillor Lydiard, that used to check over all the works. You can remember them days. A clerk of the works was his terminology, and he would check and make sure that this work was carried out as it should be. And I feel that this is where it's gone lacking over the years. We have these contractors come in, they're on a price most of the time or whatever it is, and they just willy-nilly just do the job, and the issues come back. The one I'm referring to, this complete, probably Wills Hill it was, I mentioned where it is, probably about 10 homes there had to be refurbed again because all this damp and mould come through the cabinets. Absolutely disgusting. So we do need to get this right. Anyway, with that, I'm going to open it to members' questions. Councillor Cherry, please.
Thank you, Chair. I fully endorse what you've said previously as a councillor. Much of my work was to do with damp and mould, you know, and I saw some terrible things in council properties. And then I looked at the way that we were treating it, and it was it was caveman. It was not, there was no real thought put into how to deal with the damp and mould situation. For a lot of people, it was just disinfecting and painting over again for it all to come back again. But back in those days, you know, I'd like to mention a Thurrock Gazette report on the 20th of June 2012. So this is how far back, and even before this problem of damp and mould was. We had a very inspirational lady, I think you might remember her, Roy, Deirdre Lodge. She campaigned for damp and mould because it caused her OCD and asthma, and lots of other people who are tenants of the council suffering from asthma. And it's taken the death of AWAB for us to take this seriously. But this has been going on for a long, long time in Thurrock. And I hope we've made some progress, but I've had a few cases recently where I had to deal with some damp and mould. But Dee Lodge, she worked very, very hard, and she was supported by Jackie Dahl-Price, who mentioned her in this article. And when we look at giving people in the future Freedom of the Borough Awards, the work that Dee Lodge did was quite incredible. And Chair, we should make a recommendation here that she is looked at as being a potential candidate for the Freedom of the Borough Award for working on damp and mould in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cherry. You can always approach the Mayor, Lady Mayor, and we can put that forward by all means. I fully understand. She's a lovely lady, and she has done a lot of work in this area. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I really welcome this report, and one of the reasons why I welcome this report, this all came out from a death of the child. That's what the law was named after, on the pure basis that nothing was done about damp and mould. So now this law has come in to hold to account that this sort of treatment has to happen properly in going forward. So for me, like, I don't want to go back to the place. I mean, we're all sitting around here. We can all tell stories of how much casework we've done on damp and mould, because there is not just one councillor that's sitting in this room that's had that casework. And actually, when I used to be in council property years ago, and I got mad, I was a victim of that damp and mould. So I completely understand how people feel about this. So for the council, it probably means you need to step up, you need to do more proactive work, you now have to listen to the residents. There's no like maybe thinking about it. No, you listen to the resident. And and it's really interesting in paragraph 4.3 where they've actually gone out and done some work, and they've just done a survey, and 546 out of that direct survey has damp and mould issues that nobody knew about. So I really welcome this report, Chair, and I think that it will be really good to monitor this going forward to see how many we get in the surveys and what is how we're turning that over and how we're going to address it. And it may be that, unfortunately, we have to go back to a property twice just to get it right, but let's just try and get it right. But more importantly, tell the resident what's going on. Tell them what the next stages are, give them that report, and then they've got something. And that gives a little bit of hope as well, which is more than what we ever had. So thanks, Chair.
Well said, Councillor Watson. As we say, education is another part of this. We also know certain equipment nowadays, because some of our buildings, our stock is old stock, and it probably needs updated equipment as to alleviate these issues. Who are Key West? Do we know? Thank you.
Chair, thank you. They're the external party that carry out the customer satisfaction surveys on our behalf. So whenever we carry out a repair, they take a sample, we provide the data to Key West, and they will contact the resident to carry out a customer service satisfaction survey, i.e. how was their experience of the repair work that was carried out, did the contractors turn up on time, did they do the work first time, etc. But they will also follow up with a question in terms of, have you experienced do you have any damp and mould issues within your property that you'd like to report to us? And they will then automatically, if the resident agrees, K-West will then automatically release a trigger to ourselves, and then we will contact the contractor to then do a follow-up visit and investigate the matter.
Okay, thank you. The damp and mould issues, who is the main contractor? And are we competent that these people are fully aware? We know one of the main contractors we use, but often many people are not always totally satisfied with their work, and especially in damp and mould. So, are we going to use these people, or are we going to say to these people, you need to make sure you're trained so you know what you're dealing with here? Because this is serious stuff. It's a health hazard. So, they need to step up their game, I think, because a lot of the time they're going out, they're doing repairs, and then we've got to go back again. So, they need to get it right. So if we're using a particular contractor, we want to make sure that they're trained, they know what they're doing, and get it right. Any other questions from any members? Councillor Manwa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to say that I also welcome the report. As many of us do here, it's a big issue in a lot of properties, council and non-council. But the thing that I find particularly interesting is the idea of having like a focus group, and I think there's currently a working group of actually liaising with the residents themselves, actually listening to them, not just being told, oh, it's your fault for reasons X, Y, and Z. There has to be that back and forth, as well as the educational sort of aspect as well, which is equally important. But I guess my question relates to instances where there's like persistent cases of mould, damp and mould. What can really be done if, let's say, the issue is more structural or is something that just keeps persisting? Like, what would be the follow-up from that?
Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Manuel, there have been instances where often we have to decant the residents from the property if there's deep-lying structural works, whereby we do have to cut back plasterwork to the bare substrate of the building. Then we will request a temporary decant of the resident in full consultation with the resident, explain what works need to carry out. If it's something that's fairly pervasive throughout the property, perhaps there's issues with the roofing, the insulation, the external walls, whereby they're fairly invasive works, fairly noisy works, as you can imagine. We would look then to work with our tenancy colleagues to have a temporary relocation of the resident so we can carry out those works. But I think you hit on a point there that we can deploy all the technical solutions we want, and there are many technical solutions. We are working with multiple contractors on this. But at the end, we have to have that key partnership with our residents to make it work for them as well, for their residents, in terms of how we keep them involved, engaged, but also the customer care follow-on. And as part of the new process, as contained within the report, every resident will receive, once we've carried out the treatment works, post-inspections of the works by our in-house surveying team, and regular calls at 1, 3, and 6 months to assess has there been any reoccurrence, if there's any further support we can offer, if there's any sort of minor reoccurrences that we can treat very quickly. So that is part of the new process we've already instituted. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You want to come back, or you?
Yes, I want to say thank you for that response, and it's good to know that at least it's going to be a kind of long-term sort of approach, not just trying to paint over something and hope that it kind of goes away. It's obvious that there's a lot of work that's gone into this strategy, and it's sad that it's taken the death of a 2-year-old for us to have to bring this into law and then have to adopt this as a council, but I'm glad that it's being taken seriously and that the residents are hopefully going to benefit from it.
Councillor Lydiard.
Thanks, Chair. Is it fair to say that due to the high sort of water table and the age of the properties that Tilbury is probably the worst area, or am I totally wrong?
It's a yes and no, I guess, to that, in terms of the moisture levels and sort of damp and condensation that can materialise in a building that's on a low water table. Damp-proof courses are designed to last for a certain period, whether we need to look at the structural elements of a building to reinstate the damp-proof courses. I wouldn't say there our data that we collect the data on our dashboards about looking where the calls and the damp and mold treatments are carried out. I wouldn't say it's just isolated to. I know you're not saying it's isolated to Tilbury, whether it's worth, but it can be seasonal. Some years it is the numbers we get from Tilbury are quite high. Other years less so. It's more evenly spread. But we can certainly do a sort of a table to look at over the past 3 years. So the number of cases we've had, number of reports, number of treatments we've done on a ward by ward or area basis, and that gives you some sort of idea.
Thank you. Councillor Maney, do you want to put a question for us?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that would be really helpful actually on a ward-by-ward basis if we could have a bit of feedback there. But, I mean, in terms of the contractors, I mean, I'm going to give them the dignity of leaving them to remain nameless, but they are a contractor in Basildon that do a lot of the work for Basildon Council, and they're diabolical. They are it's budget and Leggett. They're going back to the same property over and over and over again. And of course, I'm not putting the blame on the tenants, but what are we doing to educate them? Because in some of the cases I see for my day job, people are going back and back and back. The contractors are repeatedly going back. And the tenants don't really know why the mould is reoccurring, but it's a case of, for instance, somebody installed a shower with no window. And the contractors went back and they said, well, you're running a shower, you've got no windows. I mean, genuinely, they don't know. What are we doing to educate them is what I'm saying, really, I guess.
Chair, are we talking about, so Councillor Maney, are we talking about educating our residents or the, okay. Well, this is part of the customer care follow-on we want to produce. We want to produce as many materials and resources we can to share with our residents, and we have trained and experienced resident liaison officers who will visit our residents in the home and talk about, look, we all produce moisture in our day-to-day living activities. We know that. You don't need any lesson from me on that. And it's how we manage our household environments, how we ventilate, dry, heat our properties. But unfortunately, a lot of our residents struggle with that understanding, sometimes for difficult reasons. We know the cost of living and such like. A lot of residents were struggling with heating their properties and ventilating their properties. And that's where we have to perhaps pay more diligence in how we support those residents. I won't pretend I have the answers here and now. Like I say, I'm working with our residents group. We will reach out to wider residents. I'm happy to meet with any councillors and visit properties, perhaps, and discuss with you how we can approach this, how we can work with our residents and provide the right support to them. And that's what we're trying to achieve now. Yep.
Wow. Councillor Sisterson.
Thank you. I just, maybe I should know this, but how does this apply to housing association tenants? Because the problems I've had in my ward have been in housing association properties.
That's a good question. Very good.
Chair, housing associations are still subject to Arab's law timelines, so they have to respond. Obviously, they'll do it in their own way with their own policies and approaches, but they are still subject to Arab law's timelines.
And I've just come back. So as a council, do we have is there anything we can do if the housing association isn't responding in a quick enough or appropriate enough way?
Go ahead.
Chair, thank you. Nearly 2 years ago, I started a task group with local housing association providers in the Thurrock and Essex area so that we could share best practice, share information, look at how we can have joint communications to our residents on this. Unfortunately, that task group sort of withered away as the housing association started to sort of take their own course. It's something we could certainly look into restarting. We have worked with our health partners as well as part of the process to ensure in terms of communications and working with local health practitioners to share resources and information with. But in terms of the housing association network, that's something we possibly need to revisit.
Councillor Lydiard.
Thanks, Chair. I've been in properties where the mould has been so bad, sort of 12 inches from the top of the ceiling in every room, I've also been in properties where I've just wiped the mould that the tenants complained about and it's disappeared. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, that sometimes the tenants with the worst mould don't complain and others complain over something which is very, very minor. Do you have some sort of method of saying to those tenants with very minor issues, sorry, wipe it over, you know, let's not make a big deal out of this? How do you deal with those people?
One of the measures we've been potentially looking at, obviously we triage all the calls, so we'll assess the severity. If it is just condensation that can be wiped, we try and give as much advice over the phone. Maybe we're looking at, as part of the new works contract that will be coming in place this year, some video diagnostics, so we can talk to people over WhatsApp, over the video, over their phones, so that our contractors or my officers can make an assessment. Let's have a look at it, and if it's something that can be wipeable, we'll provide any sort of guidance, any sort of easy two-step guides. We did explore providing people with kits, so antifungal wipe kits, so they can wear gloves and wipe down. We can provide those. We can provide moisture traps for people. But in the end, it is really working with our residents to ensure that, you know, they're comfortable in how they manage their household environment. But we've got to be proactive as well in terms of, you've mentioned, Councillor Lydia, people haven't reported it. One of the proactive steps we have taken is about finding the silence, finding those properties that have prevalent damp and mould and condensation that isn't being reported. And so how we reach out to those residents is also a key factor of what we're trying to achieve here.
Thank you. Councillor Cherry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've all agreed that this damp and mould problem could be made better with better heating, ventilation, using condensation machines. All this takes energy and power. We've mentioned the costs. You know, we've got the government that's putting net zero tariffs on power, so people can't afford perhaps to heat properly their properties. As a council, I dealt with mainly council-owned properties for damp and mould and these issues. But we've, as a borough, have just brought in selective licensing scheme for private landlords, and we're requiring them to get a licence for each of their properties of £1,036, and we're threatening all sorts of fines on private landlords. But most of my complaints came from council tenants with these issues. Also, ASB is one of the issues linked to this selective licensing scheme, but the majority of my complaints for ASB come from council tenants. So perhaps the council is living in a glass house and shouldn't be throwing stones in the direction of private landlords. Perhaps the council should look at having a selective licence for each of their properties, and in that way the council would have to make sure then that their own properties are comparable to what they want private landlord properties to be, and perhaps start fining themselves after they bought licence for each property. You know, I don't think we're in a position.
Can you get to a
moment.
question, please, Councillor?
The question is, should we bring in a selective licensing scheme for council properties?
Councillor Hooper, would you like to respond?
No, because we're governed by the HRA, the housing regulator. They will come in and check us. We are due to be checked, I believe, fairly shortly. And part of the findings from the peer review highlighted areas where we need to be better and do better. So there are a different set of regulations, Councillor, to what the private sector have. But because we're doing it to the private sector doesn't mean to say we shouldn't be doing things ourselves. We definitely need to be doing things ourselves. And it's a two-pronged approach. I think it benefits everybody. So it's something that we will continue to look at. You've got hopefully the action plan coming to you at the end of January, which I think will help in terms of a path forward. But we are regulated, the council is regulated by different bodies than the private sector.
Councillor Cherry?
Does the council get fined?
Chair, in the report we have included, Councillor Cherry, that damp and mould is to be considered as part of the hazards under the Housing Health and Rating Safety System. And so we will be regulated, as Councillor Hooper has highlighted, as part of any hazards within a property. Damp and mould will be included as part of those hazards and will be required as part of the compliance checks to treat damp and mould in a responsible way to keep our residents safe.
You want to come back, Councillor Cherry?
Yes, please. So we will be required to put right what is wrong, but will we also be fined, which is what's going to be happening to the private rental market? And we rely upon the private rental market to provide a lot of housing for people in the country. Is it a fair system?
Councillor Hooper.
I'm not sure people are fined. They're basically asked to. We have officers going into private rental accommodations to make sure the accommodation meets the standard. And then we ask them to actually meet that standard, make the repairs necessary to that property if it doesn't meet those standards. They risk lose their licence, I guess, if they don't do the works that we are actually asking them to do. I'm not sure they're fined, though.
I understand that there will be a fine system, and if landlords aren't compliant, that those properties will be taken off them. I think has happened in other boroughs, that the properties will be taken off them and run by the council. But what I'm saying is, are we the best example as a council with our properties to tell other people how to run their properties without us being fined?
Do you want to respond to that, Councillor Hooper, and then I'm going to go for another question?
My response is you are correct. I was wrong. I apologise that they are fined if they don't actually meet the standards, so I apologise for that. But do you want to answer? Right.
Sorry, thank you. So we mentioned about the regulator of social housing, and part of that legislation that came in gave the regulator much stronger powers. As a provider, one of the possible sanctions, if it was very, very serious, is potentially an unlimited fine. There are a range of possible sanctions that the regulator of social housing has against us as a social housing landlord, which applies to all social housing landlords. So although there is different standards, we have the Decent Home Standard, which currently doesn't really exist in the private sector, although it's under consultation. We are very much being held to account, and part of the work of the regulator of social housing is to do that. It is at the very end of the possible sanctions that could be applied to us. There are a lot of measures as a social housing provider that we could be facing, but no, an unlimited fine is something that potentially we could face in very, very serious situations.
You okay? Because Councillor Watson wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chair. One of the reasons the selective licences is on is for that very reason, is that in my ward, most of my issues are actually from private landlords, and they're actually from housing associations. So a council will always be regulated, because it always has done, and it will be fined. A housing association is also regulated as an RSL, always will be fined and everything, but the private landlords aren't. So the sector is, the licence is to ensure to bring it up to a standard of damp and mould, electricity, of heating, of windows, and a decent standard that people can go into. Because more and more and more is happening is that our residents, we're going on private nightly lets now in temporary accommodation, and more people are moving into the private rental sector. So it's a way of, and HMOs, and more HMOs are coming through. So it's a way of us ensuring that landlords meet the requirement that is best for those residents. That's what the licence is about, councillor. But as for us and housing associations, we're regulated. We have to be.
But are we as fined? Are we as under as much scrutiny as those private landlords will be?
We'll bring this to a conclusion now. Can we?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are, housing associations are, if they don't meet the requirement, because we are regulated by the government under the legislation, the Housing Act legislation.
Thank you. Do we think that council is affording enough money to carry out all the repairs to the damp and mould? I mean, you know, it could be an open check really, because this can be going on. And what I would like to see is that we get this right. We're not looking at a budget, and once that budget's done, we can't do any more. I know if it's emergency, we probably have to, but I want to make sure that we apply enough funds as to carry this work out and get it right.
Annually, we review, as part of our rent setting process, we'll review what work we need to do in the following year, but we are carrying out a process at the moment where we're reviewing our 30-year HRI business plan, and that will be coming to scrutiny probably in the mid to latter part of the year. So we're carrying out a full review of that, taking into account the findings of the HRA peer review, and we've also carried out a deep dive review of our HRA. So we're going to ensure that those works we need to do around compliance are fully funded in line with the income we received by the HRA. So we would always, you can always do more, but we need to look at affordability and look at see how we manage that and prioritise the work that we want to do. But we're currently doing a deep dive review of that as well.
Okay, I just want to bring our stock up to good order. That's the main purpose of this report, really, isn't it? That's the idea behind it. Have we any data regarding children's health with the damp and mould issues in Thurrock? Because, you know, this is a health concern. Councillor Rigby, obviously, you know, it's part of a remit on the health board. So, you know, do we keep an eye, you know, if there's areas where children, should we say, constantly going to the doctor through ill health, through breathing problems and things like that, that can be attributed to bad living conditions?
I think that's why it's key that Councillor Hooper, got your name there, is actually the portfolio holder for health and wellbeing as well, and that's why we were ensuring that we're carrying through it, that link and that information is passed through both from the housing portfolio into the health and wellbeing agenda. So we know we need to do more around sharing that data, sharing that intelligence, but that is key part of one of Councillor Hooper's priorities over the coming year as he's retaken back the housing portfolio.
You've got a lot of work on your hands, Councillor Hooper. If we can find, if there's any data and you know, how that's been reported, how children's health in certain areas are progressing. Any other questions, Councillor Lydiard?
You brought up health, Chair. Am I right in saying that the health in Tilbury is 40% worse than in, let's say, Corringham, Stamford area? That's what I've read from the NHS. I don't know whether it's still true.
Good question.
We have actually got some new data that's about to be published, Councillor. I don't have it to hand at the moment. I've not seen the information for Tilbury. I've seen it for my own ward because it came out as an example of what the report will look like. That is coming out very, very soon. We're aiming, once the ward reports are available, that we would do some sort of training with councillors, and I kind of like will throw my neck on the line, if you like. I'm willing to meet ward councillors to actually look at the reports for their particular area and how I can work together with ward councillors, no matter what colour party they represent, to actually see the best way forward we can actually improve health in their particular wards.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you. Well, I also welcome this report, and as I say, let's all work together to try and get this right. Also in the report, I'd like to add that I really do appreciate all the acronyms that was put forward here. You know, it's nothing worse than sitting down reading the BSR and the BAR and the XER and all that comes in there. When you got that to refer to. So if we can carry on like that, I did mention it once before, it'll be good for the committee. So with that, the recommendation is the committee is recommended to note and comment on the comments. We're all happy with that, committee? Thank you very much. That's very important, this one, and I'm glad we afforded a great deal of time to it, and appreciate the questions that members put forward. So with that, we go on to item 8, which is the work programme. The work programme is on pages 93 to 96 of the agenda. Lucy, can I ask you to take us through it, please?
Thanks, Chair. If members are happy, I'll take the work programme, action log and the recommendations tracker on block. If everyone's happy, is that, yeah?
It's fine, absolutely.
Thanks, Chair. So very quickly, in terms of the work programme, the 29th of January, we've already discussed that we'll be adding the peer review action plan, so that'll be added. Just a couple of other things to note regarding the task and finish group on the Gravesend-Tilbury ferry. The work will be starting at the end of January on that. I think we're just waiting on clarification for a few points. So that will be when that commences. In addition, as Councillor Jones already mentioned, there may be a couple of extraordinary meetings coming up on a variety of different things, and that will be communicated to members nearer the time. Happy to take any questions, comments, or anything on the work programme or any of the documents. Thank you.
Has anyone got any questions to Lucy regarding all them things that she's just said? She's real off. She was so quick, wasn't she? I know there's a need to get home, I heard, but especially Kenna. Someone wants to get the second half of the football. Anyway, I think we concluded all the business tonight, and once again, I'd like to thank the committee for attending and allowing to come to this extra meeting, which, as we say, we got quite a lot on the agenda this year as to conclude business. So with that, we're closing the meeting. We're coming up to 10 to 9. So good night all, and thank you very much. Take care.